This is the finished piece of the tutorial you're about to watch, an oil painting of a butterfly. Coming up, a step-by-step demonstration of how I achieved this result. As you can see, we have the drawing laid out on our canvas already, and our first step will be to block in the base colors. Here I'm blocking in the light shade in a mid-tone. We'll add the lights and the darks on top of this mid color, which is a medieval yellow with a touch of white in it. So we will add in some shadows and some form to the veins. I've used a Portland grey with the same medieval yellow to keep it natural. We're using a pointed round brush here and continuing to outline the veins in the butterfly wing. Now we'll blend with a soft blending brush. This removes the excess paint and gives it a natural finish. Now we block in the blue color, again in the mid-tone, adding the darks and lights later. This is a cerulean blue with a small amount of white. I'm leaving space for the veins as we're going to outline them later. We'll add paint to every section of the painting, and when we have all the color blocked in, we'll blend it again with a soft brush. The process for most of this painting will be to apply the paint with a small amount of turpentine and to blend it with a soft brush at each step. Now we're adding the veins in a dark blue. The color I've used is ultramarine with a small amount of Van Dyke brown to make it darker. And we're using a very fine brush here, pointed, 0.00, and I'm using Da Vinci, which is a good brand for this type of brush. Again, we're going to apply the paint, and once we have the paint applied, we'll blend this very lightly. Now for the outline of the wings, we'll add a base underneath color of yellow ochre and orange ochre. Blending this out to remove excess paint as we're going to paint over it. Now we'll add our darkest color of brown madder with a Van Dyke brown, leaving some of the base color that we've just applied showing through, and lightly blending. Add our antenna in this dark color, and add some form to the body of the butterfly, creating a hair effect with this pointed small brush, just loosely, as we're going to go over this again at a later stage. Now we add our shadow. Here I've used a yellow ochre with a very small amount of Davies grey. This gives the yellow ochre a slightly more natural look. And I'm using a flat square brush. Again, using a flat square brush to add in the background, blocking it in one color. I've used a Portland grey, which is a warm shade of grey, and a very pale yellow. I've used medieval yellow. You'll notice that I'm using a maul stick. This steadies my hand and allows for more control. You can lean your hand against the maul stick while you're painting. And when we have our background color blocked in, we use our blending brush to blend the edges of the shadow. The shadow shouldn't have hard edges, the edges should be soft. That's our first layer of the painting. So we'll leave this to dry for a day or two, and now it's ready to paint again. So this is the second and final layer of the painting. We're adding in a mid blue, slightly darker than the blue that's already been applied, a cerulean blue. Using a round pointed brush. And leaving a bit of the original blue in the center of the wings. Once all the paint is applied, we'll blend with our soft brush, adding a slightly lighter blue to the center on top of the original color, which is cerulean blue with a hint of white, just to be slightly lighter than the blue we've added. Blending again. Underneath the top wings, there would be a shadow, so I'm adding in more Portland grey with a very small amount of Naples yellow to create the shadow effect, and leading a little bit into the veins. Blending again when we're done. And then using the Portland grey with some Davies grey, we're using our fine brush to just give the very innermost corners the darker shade. The body of the butterfly also creates a shadow, so those areas will be dark too. Now we're using a dark blue, an ultramarine blue, and our fine brush to add in the veins in the blue section of the butterfly. Applying all the paint and then very lightly blending. Continuing with the body, we'll add in some light blue to create a hair effect with our pointed brush. We'll be adding more definition to this shortly. Now our very darkest color, which is a Van Dyke brown, with just a small amount of the ultramarine blue added in. So we're adding some definition to the body, and I've used these dark and very light colors to give a high contrast. Now outlining the wings with the very darkest brown. Bringing the dark brown into the blue veins and leaving a bit of the ochre color showing through. Adding all the color and then lightly blending afterwards. We'll go over our antenna with the very dark brown. Now we add our highlight to the white section. So I've used the medieval yellow, a very pale yellow. And we are not using any turpentine with this, so it's going directly on, not covering all of the white that we've painted already. So a heavy amount of paint, but used very sparingly to create a highlight effect. And we don't blend this paint. Using the same technique, we'll highlight the light part on the border of the butterfly using a permanent yellow deep, and just adding a few pieces sparingly here and there. We'll add some Venetian red to give it more color and drama. And then adding a little bit more of our Van Dyke brown. and blending again. We'll add in our shadow again. We've used yellow ochre and Davies grey just to give it a second layer to be a more even colour. Closer to the butterfly, the shadow will get darker, so adding Davies grey and yellow ochre, but with more Davies grey and less yellow ochre in the mix. And then we blend this together. You notice the shadow of the body of the butterfly has gone slightly to one side, so we'll correct this by adding in the background colour and altering the shape of it so that it follows the form of the butterfly. We blend our shadow, block in our background colour, and the piece is finished.